So you want to get into flipping and wholesaling houses. Maybe you saw it on TV, or maybe you have a friend that told you that it was easy. I did too. But then I came to the harsh reality that you're 1 or 2 decisions away from literally losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And after flipping and wholesaling hundreds and hundreds of houses, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to look out for so you don't fall into those traps. If you're new to my channel, my name is Austin Rutherford. I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Now live in South Florida, flipped and wholesaled hundreds of houses, own almost 100 rental properties valued at almost $15 million. And if you want to learn more about real estate, go to theaustinrutherford.com. So it all started with this comment on my TikTok channel. Shout out to Dawson. He asked, what kind of rehab properties do you look to avoid? What projects / issues are always causing problems or more headaches than you want? And like I said earlier, with flipping houses, you only need to miss one thing and your whole deal can get blown up. So if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm gonna show you the biggest mistake that I see people make and how I made it, and I lost a lot of money by doing it. And as you can see in this video here, I've done it all. And as you can see in this video, we've done it all. This one was probably one of the biggest renovations we've done. We literally had to rip out everything due to fire damage. Check it out.
Building was fire damaged. So we ripped off the whole roof. I'm going up there now so you can take a look at it. But had to reframe the entire thing top to bottom. The walls started caving in. What's up, guys? Just pulled up to the office building we're renovating, and I wanted to walk you through real quick, point out a couple things to you that I'm learning along the way. So here, just got done with the whole framing package.
So let's get to it. Budgeting for repairs. The first thing that you need to understand here is you can run a budget, and let's say your budget comes out to $50,000. You absolutely 100% have to have a contingency budget on top of that budget. So if you actually think it's gonna cost $50,000 to renovate this job, make sure you add 10 to 20% on top of that $50,000 for the unknowns. So it's 50 grand, add another 10%. So your rehab budget is actually $55,000, and use that number to run the numbers, not the $50,000, because there's almost no deal that I've ever done where I haven't used all of my renovation budget and all of my contingency budget. It's very, very rare to not use all that money. So you have to have a contingency budget. And the bigger the renovation is, most people are like, well, it's a 100K renovation, I'm only gonna use 10%. No, there's more error that can happen. Use 20%. Smaller renovations, you might be able to come back to 15 or 10%. If it's your first deal, use a large contingency because you're probably gonna miss a lot of things though. So 6 of the biggest mistakes that I see people make. First is electric, because most people don't understand what's behind the walls. They look at the cosmetic problems of the property, the flooring, the paint, the kitchens, the baths, and all those things need updated, but it's the things behind the walls that usually cost the most money. So this is a new panel, so this isn't good or bad. We're rewiring an entire house top to bottom, but one of the biggest things you can look at is for knob and tube wiring. If it has knob and tube wiring, most cities, most municipalities, most insurance companies require that be updated, because those are like 100 years old. So if it has knob and tube, you probably want to update it. And if it has 2-prong versus 3-prong outlets, a 2-prong outlet means that there's no grounds in the property. Again, most municipalities and cities, if you're updating the property and pulling permits, they're usually going to require you to update the grounding, update the electric for that property, which electric costs a lot of money. On like a regular 2,000 square foot house, to do a complete rewire can cost $10,000 plus sometimes. So you gotta make sure you check out the electric. The next one is foundation problems. This kills most deals, especially if you're in an area with basements. The basements make or break the deal. So we can get pictures of a house and it looks amazing, but I'm like, where's the basement pictures? Because without the basement pictures, you don't know anything about the deal, because the plumbing's down there, the electric's down there, the HVAC's down there, the foundation's down there, the mold's down there. All the big issues are in the basement. So foundation is found in the basement. If you check out these pictures here, usually what happens is that walls start to bow out. So you have a wall that's holding up the house that's flat, and then it starts to bow. So it creates like a V instead of a straight line. And what this means is that there's water going down the outside of the house and putting pressure against the wall, and the wall is starting to fail. And if it continues, the wall will actually collapse, and then the house could potentially fall down on itself, which obviously you don't want to happen. So if you see foundation problems or massive cracks in a wall or the wall blowing out, Usually the fix is that you have to put beams in the basement. So you put beams in every 3 feet, and these beams can cost anywhere from $500 to $700 per beam to install. So if you got to do the whole basement, that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So you have to look at the foundation walls. And if the walls are too bad, beams aren't even going to fix it. You have to jack the house up, tear out the wall, rebuild the wall, and then set the house back down on the foundation. I've been there too, unfortunately. The third one is landscaping. And I know this sounds very simple, like duh, you got a landscape. But what I've seen people do is they focus so much on the house, they come up with the repair budget on the house, and then the backyard looks like this. And the problem with that is that they don't budget for landscaping because they forget about it, right? They're running their numbers, they don't even think about the landscaping. This landscaping can cost $5,000 to $10,000, right? Most landscaping is not usually this bad, but even $1,000 in landscaping misbudgeted is $1,000 less in your pocket. So just make sure you don't forget to budget for landscaping. The fourth one is mold. Now there's different types of mold, right? So this picture here is a house that we've bought in the past, and there was obviously mold growing inside the basement. So what happens is water goes down the wall and into the basement, and there's no heat, there's no cooling, there's a ton of humidity, and it causes mold. There's nowhere for the water to go, so it starts growing mold. So on this house, we bought it, we literally ripped out the entire basement, everything you can imagine in the basement, and then we had to treat for mold. Again, not the end of the world if you budget for it. You know, the demo cost us a couple $1,000s. The mold treatment costed a couple $1,000s, but this is not like a terrible, terrible case of mold. This is pretty bad, but it's not the worst that I've seen. The thing that happens is usually if you just demo it all out and gut everything out, it usually solves the majority of the problem. And then you just have to go in and treat the walls and the ceilings and the floors thereafter. Another issue that can happen is sewer problems. Now these are usually pretty high ticket items and almost nobody catches this on the front end. So how you can prevent this is when you buy a house, you can get the sewer line scoped. So what this means is you can put a camera down the sewer line and out to the city to make sure there's no issues with the sewer line. So this maybe costs a few $100s, but it can save you thousands and thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars from replacement. My first house that I ever bought, house was beautiful, we were renovating it, we were about to break ground on the 2-car garage out back, and I was walking through, they dug it out, they framed it, they were getting ready to pour the concrete, and I saw this little pipe sticking up, and I was like, what is that? And I went and I looked down, it was just this hole that went down. I was like, this is weird. And it's called a trap. This is a whole nother discussion, but back in the day, they used to do yard traps instead of traps underneath every sink and every toilet. So the yard trap was collapsed, which means that the sewer did not work. This house was vacant, by the way, which means that I had to dig up the entire backyard and replace this underground sewer line that was about 15 feet below ground level. And it cost me $7,500 to do that. But what if I built the garage on top of it and then learned that the sewer line was bad? Then I would have had to remove the garage and do the sewer line. It could have cost a lot of money. So the way to prevent this is simply get the sewer line cameraed before you buy the property. And I kind of touched on this earlier. I talked about bowing foundation problems, but there's other foundation problems as well. And this was my biggest mistake that I've ever made. I bought a house, and after I bought it, I realized that the house was literally sliding off the foundation. The entire house was sliding off the foundation, not just a wall that I had to put some beams on. And I realized it because we demoed the house out and we saw that the outside of the house was not on the foundation. It was off of the foundation. So the house was literally sliding off of the foundation. So what did we have to do? We had to rip off the entire back structure, the whole thing. And then the rest of the house, we had to put LVL beams, which are very heavy duty beams, through the entire house, jack the entire house up and rebuild the entire foundation wall with new concrete and rebuild the back addition that we had to rip off prior to that. It cost me $50,000 plus. It was a very, very hard lesson learned. But the good thing is that when I bought this house, I had very high profitability on the house. So I didn't lose money on this house. I think I ended up making maybe like $13,000 on the deal, but it took me way longer than I expected. I spent way more money on it than I expected, but I still was able to get the deal done and profitable because I bought it the right way. But the way that I could have avoided this is I could have hired a structural engineer to come in and actually look harder at the foundation than what I did, and he would have seen these issues beforehand. So my recommendation to you, for your first few deals, hire inspectors to come out and walk the property with you. Hire contractors to come out and walk the property with you. See if you can find another real estate investor in the area to give you some time to walk the property with you and teach you about the issues that can go on with houses. I didn't know anything about electric, plumbing, HVAC, foundation, windows, framing, siding, anything. But since I've done it so many times and I've been on site so many times and I've talked to so many contractors and inspectors and appraisers and talked to everybody and asked a lot of questions, I know a lot about construction now. But the only way to get there is by being around those people and asking the right questions. So I always recommend to hire people to come with you for the first few houses so you can learn a lot faster. And the last thing, understand that anything can be fixed. Anything. There's just a dollar amount that has to go with it. So a lot of people run away from a lot of deals because they're too much work or because they have mold or foundation problems. But the thing that matters is if you budget for it correctly, which anything can be fixed for the right price, if you budget for it correctly and you get the right price on the deal to buy it and you can still make money, it doesn't matter about the work that's involved. So a lot of people run away from these things. I have no problem with these things because I know it's still profitable as long as I budget for it on the front end. So don't get scared away from deals because of hard work or a lot of work or foundation problems. Use that to negotiate a better price to still make the deal profitable. So my question to you is, what's holding you back? What are you most fearful of? Comment below, let me know. And if you wanted to get started in real estate investing, I would love to work with you and help teach you the ropes. If you want to go to theaustinrutherford.com and check it out, I would love to tell you more about the opportunity. Make sure you smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, hit that subscribe and notification bell so you can get all this content going forward. As always, appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next one.